The bell above the door screamed as Jade Marlowe kicked it open, both hands full, his baby girl thrashing and wailing against his chest like something inside her was breaking. Every head in Miller's general store turned. Flour sacks, nails, a woman's basket of thread frozen mid-reach. Nobody moved. Jade did not walk to the counter, he ran. He slammed a half-empty milk bottle down so hard it rang against the wood, and the whole store flinched. "I need this back," he said, voice cracking like dry leather. "Please, I'll trade it, I'll trade anything." Mr. Miller stepped back, hands raised like a man facing a loaded gun instead of a farmer's bottle. "Jade, we don't do returns." "She can't hold it down." Jade's shout bounced off the tin cans and glass jars. Hope let out a thin, broken cry, weaker than a kitten's, and Jade rocked her hard and fast, too fast. The way a man rocks when rocking is the only thing keeping him from falling apart himself. Someone near the flour barrel laughed under her breath. A man by the door muttered, drunk probably, or plain touched in the head. Jade heard none of it. He was already tearing at his own shirt pocket, pulling out 3 bent, sorry-looking coins, slapping them beside the bottle like they might somehow be enough. "Take these too, I'll sweep your floor. I'll break your fence posts and set new ones. I'll work till my hands bleed, just please, something soft, something that won't tear her belly apart." The store went dead quiet. Behind a shelf of tin cans, a woman in fine black gloves went still. Her breath caught somewhere behind her ribs, watching a poor, wild-eyed stranger beg like his whole world was balanced on one small glass bottle. And then Ruth Callahan stepped out from behind the shelf, and every single person in that store turned to stare at her instead. Ruth watched from the porch as Jade worked the fence with one hand. The other pressed flat against Hope's back to keep her steady in the sling. He hummed low while he worked, a broken little tune, and Ruth found herself listening for it every morning before she even opened her eyes. By midday she carried out water and a plate of food, setting it on the fence post beside him. "You can't mend fence and mind a baby both," she said. "It isn't sensible." "Wasn't given much choice, ma'am," Jade said, not looking up. "Her mother's people won't have her. Say she brought bad luck dying like her mama did. Ain't nobody left but me." Ruth looked at Hope's small face turned up toward the sky, and something old and buried moved in her chest. "Bring her to the house," Ruth said. "Nell raised 6 of her own. She'll watch the child while you work." Jade's jaw tightened, pride wrestling plain sense right there on his face. "Just while I work," he said, "nothing more." But it became more. Days folded into weeks. Jade fixed the crooked barn door. He broke a Mustang no other hand could touch. And every evening, Ruth found some reason to stand in the kitchen doorway, watching Hope's cheeks fill out, watching her small hand curl around Nell's finger. One evening, holding Hope while Jade finished outside, Ruth said the words before she could stop them. "I had a baby once. She died within a week." Jade came in quiet and sat across from her, careful, like a man handling something that might break. "Grief's a strange animal," he said. "It don't leave. It just learns to walk beside you instead of on top of you." Ruth looked up at him, surprised. Outside, the crickets started their evening song, and the gold light slid soft over the hills. Ruth sat there with a baby's warm hand wrapped around her thumb, and felt, for the first time in years, something inside her that had been frozen begin, quietly, to crack. Thunder cracked so hard it rattled the glass in Ruth's window, and she stood frozen, watching black clouds roll over the hills like stampeding cattle. Somewhere in town, in a shack with a leaking roof, Hope was out there in this. "Get the wagon," Ruth said. "In this weather, ma'am, it ain't safe." "Get the wagon now." They rode through sheets of rain, wheels sliding in the mud, lightning splitting the sky white and jagged. When they reached Jade's shack, Ruth's stomach dropped. Water poured straight through a hole in the roof, right over the crate where Hope lay. Jade was soaked through, curled over his daughter, trying to shield her with his own back. Hope was crying hard now, and her small lips had gone faintly blue. Ruth, Jade started, stunned to see her standing in his doorway. No time for talk. Bring her, both of you, now. Ruth held Hope wrapped tight in her own dry shawl the whole ride back, whispering words the baby could not understand but seemed to feel anyway. By the time they reached the house, the crying had softened into small hiccups, and pink returned to her lips. Nell built up the fire. Ruth rocked Hope by the flames, and Jade stood dripping nearby, watching her with something more than gratitude on his face. "I can't keep doing this to her," he said quietly once Hope had fallen asleep. "A shack with a leaking roof, wages that barely feed us. She deserves better. She has a father who traded back a bottle of milk rather than watch her suffer," Ruth said. "That's worth more than any roof." "Love don't keep the rain out," Jade said, heavy with a sadness he'd clearly carried a long while. Ruth looked down at the sleeping baby, then up at him. "Then let something else keep the rain out," she said. "Stay here, not in a shack in town. Stay in the small house by the creek." Jade shook his head. "Ma'am, I don't take charity." "It isn't charity," Ruth said. "It's a job, yours if you'll have it." The fire crackled between them. Rain drummed steady on the roof above. "All right," Jade said, voice thick. "For her sake." The fiddle stopped mid-note, and every lantern in the hall seemed to lean in closer as Ruth walked to the center of the room. Whispers had followed her and Jade for months, and tonight she meant to end them. "Many of you have wondered about my business with Jade Marlowe," Ruth said, her voice carrying clear across the quiet hall. "Some have called it charity. Some have called it foolishness. I want to tell you what it really is." She crossed to where Jade stood, Hope on his hip, his face uncertain, unsure what Ruth was about to say in front of the whole town. "Nearly a year ago, I watched a man walk into Miller's store, willing to work his hands raw rather than accept a gift he hadn't earned, because he loved his daughter more than his own pride," Ruth said. "I have not seen honor like that in a long, long time." Hope reached out her small hand, and Ruth stepped closer, letting the child grab hold of her finger in front of everyone. "I am not a woman who gives charity easily," Ruth said, turning to the crowd. "But this was never charity. This is family. I am asking Jade Marlowe to marry me, not because I need a husband, but because somewhere between a bottle of returned milk and a stormy night in a leaking shack, I found the family I thought I'd lost 30 years ago." Gasps rippled through the hall. A fork clattered to the floor. The fiddler forgot he still held his bow. Jade stood frozen, staring at her. "Ruth," he said slowly, "I never once did any of this expecting." "I know," Ruth said, softer now. "That's exactly why I'm asking." Jade crossed the room in 3 long strides. He knelt so Hope could pat Ruth's cheek, then took Ruth's hand in his rough, work-worn palm. "Then yes," he said, voice breaking. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." The hall erupted into cheers. The fiddler struck up a joyful tune, and old Mr. Miller wiped his eyes, telling anyone nearby he always knew that bottle of milk would mean something.